The elven lord had faithfully trailed the same path, yet he struggled to match his sister's swift stride. It was but a matter of moments before she vanished from his sight, disappearing into the depths of the animal trail. This, however, had been his intention all along. As soon as she disappeared, he swiftly reversed his course, abruptly halting and deftly pivoting to intercept their relentless hunter. The Leshy, taken aback by the unforeseen maneuver, was rendered helpless as Aran'yon deftly sidestepped to his left. Firmly clutching the sheath with his right hand, he unsheathed his blade using his left and swiftly executed a diagonal slash from right to left as he pivoted sideways. With immense force, the keen edge cleaved through the Leshy's lower foreleg, severing the paw. Such was the blade's unstoppable momentum that the woven mesh of vines, branches, and thorns failed to impede its path, allowing it to tear through the upper hind leg as well. The feral flora emitted a hiss, not of pain but of frustration, as it crashed into the earth, somersaulting in disarray while its paw and hind leg tumbled about like severed tumbleweeds. Yet, this proved to be but a trifling setback. Swiftly, the severed limbs began their metamorphosis, wriggling their way back toward the Leshy. Like the halves of a worm, split and yet undying, they regenerated and seamlessly fused with the host body once more. The Leshy, now reduced to a shapeless heap, soon burst forth anew, resuming its formidable humanoid form. Extending its stumpy right arm, the Leshy commanded several vines to burst forth, intertwining and shaping themselves into a hand. Emerging from the palm's center, the tip of a wicked, gnarled oak spear sprang forth, freezing in midair as the Leshy's right hand grasped the lower shaft while its newly formed left hand clutched the upper part. Keeping the momentum of its charge, the Leshy commenced a rapid onslaught, repeatedly thrusting the sharpened oak tip. Aran'yon found himself forced into a defensive stance, retreating while parrying the spear with his sword. The spear's longer reach granted his adversary a slight advantage, surpassing that of his own blade. Moreover, the spear's construction from solid oak, lacking a spearhead, left no vulnerable point to exploit. Nevertheless, Aran'yon's faux steel blade managed to bite into the shaft and weakened it as he batted it away. The sharpened oak tip of the Leshy's spear also dulled as it collided with his metal armor, unable to breach the warrior's defenses to get at his exposed head. Spotting an opportune moment, the lord released his sheath, grasped his sword firmly with both hands, and unleashed a ruthless downward slash. The swing cleaved through both the spear and the Leshy's left hand while deftly evading a thrust. However, this was no mere slash, it was a skillful draw cut. With a swift pivot of his grip, he gracefully arced the blade back upward, severing his opponent's right hand in a single fluid motion. This impeccable strike would have secured victory against a foe of flesh and blood, but its impact was fleeting against one composed of pith and sap. Swiftly, the Leshy executed a backstep, distancing itself from the elf, while the thrashing, severed vines at the stumps of its arms began weaving into a fresh pair of hands. The Night Lord, determined to deliver a more decisive blow, lunged forward, only to be abruptly halted in his tracks. A swift downward glance revealed the hands he had severed had crawled toward his sabatons, coiling around the scales and burrowing into the earth, ensnaring him in place. Employing a quick slash, he freed himself from the entanglement, yet the Leshy had recovered, charging forth once more, now wielding a newly fashioned oaken spear. The ebb and flow of the battle persisted, stretching on for what felt like an eternity. Relentlessly, the Leshy pressed its assault upon the elf, who in turn fended off the wrathful forest dweller. Aran'yon was undeniably the superior combatant, wielding superior weaponry, yet what worth held such advantages when pitted against an adversary with an inexhaustible arsenal? Each time the knight shattered a spear, the Leshy would retreat, harnessing its primal magic to conjure a fresh weapon. Magic, like all wellsprings of power, possessed finite bounds, but primal magic drew its strength from the very essence of the land. Even if he were to engage the Leshy in combat for a century span, his foe would never approach the brink of primal magic's limits within the world wood. It was akin to attempting to drain a lake with naught but a meager teaspoon. The elf found himself increasingly exasperated as he encountered numerous opportunities to bring the battle to a decisive end. His accoutramency proved unwavering, enabling him to discern the precise whereabouts of the core within the sentient thicket as it shifted about. Moments of fury had momentarily clouded the Leshy's judgment, resulting in at least 5 instances where its defenses had waned. However, the elf could not muster the resolve to deliver a fatal blow. Though certain he and his sister had been lured by his foe, this was still the realm of the Leshy. By deceptive abuse of rights, the Leshy was justified in launching its assault. To slay the defender would transcend mere warfare and plunge into the depths of murder. Yet, Aran'yon was no fool, unwilling to disregard his own life so readily. His existence held equal value to the Leshy's, and he accepted there was no peaceful resolution to this conflict. Now using the flat of his blade, he deflected the next spear thrust downward, driving its point deep into the earth rather than slicing it. As the creature strained to free the ensnared spear, he backpedaled, maintaining distance as he prepared to end this battle.
More importantly,
his eyes flashed as he recalled the attack against his sister.
None shall threaten my blood and endure.
The knight uttered bitterly, embracing the unwavering determination to eradicate his adversary. The lord's thoughts turned inward as he extended his accoutramency, his ears poised upward toward the unseen sky. His hearing transcended the bounds of mere kilometers. It stretched beyond the undergrowth and woodland, beyond the babbling streams and winding rivers, beyond the serene valleys and towering mountains, beyond sleepy hamlets and bustling cities, beyond grand kingdoms and formidable empires, and even beyond the ethereal clouds and into realms unknown. Accoutramency held no sorcery within its grasp, yet it was through mastery of this art that the true essence of sorcery could be unveiled. In the elf lord's perception, sounds ceased to be mere echoes, they became the very symphony of the cosmos. As this occurred within the blink of an eye, the Leshy abruptly ceased its retrieval, its primal instincts warning of immense peril lurking within the elf. Frantically, it endeavored to fashion a new spear, yet time had slipped through its grasp, and the opportunity had withered away. Aran'yon extended his sword towards his adversary, clutching it resolutely with his right hand. His left palm hovered, upturned, before his lips as he commenced a melodic incantation. Envisioning his heart as unyielding stone and feeling the icy kiss of death, he ravished in its consuming essence, rather than succumbing to fear.
The chilling whispers, I shall now set free. In frozen embrace, your end shall I seize. With icy breath, your fate I decree. By white frost's touch, your core shall now freeze.
The haunting melody of Aran'yon's voice coalesced within the palm of his hand, commanding reality to yield. Spirals of frost gracefully twirled between each finger, growing in both scale and velocity. The Leshy, attuned to the imminent peril, instinctively hurled its spear towards the elf, yet the Night Lord effortlessly deflected the projectile before charging forward. Gale force winds ripped leaves asunder, a tempest unleashed by his commanding presence. Uninterrupted in his motion, he unleashed the glacier fury, and magic fractured upon impact with the earth surrounding the Leshy. Ivory stalagmites of ice erupted from the very ground, entrapping the animated bramble. The Leshy emitted a mournful cry as it discerned its impending fate. Desperately, it endeavored to shape-change into a towering mound and expand its form, yet cascades of ice surged forth, surpassing its efforts and ensnaring it within a majestic column of frost. The icy enclosure exuded an unyielding chill, its transparency akin to crystalline glass, laying bare the creature trapped in an eternal stasis. The radiant luminosity in its orbs faded as its very core succumbed to the icy grasp of death. Aran'yon composed himself, surveying his handiwork. Unwavering, he remained resolute in the face of the life he had extinguished, for the weight of guilt no longer afflicted him. His paramount worry lay in the repercussions of his deeds. The ire of the forest would soon awaken, leaving him with scarce moments to spare. Pausing briefly to retrieve his cast-off sheath, he hastened with all the swiftness he could muster along the path he had guided his sister upon.
Girazanthar. Aran'yon.
Arachel's desperate cry echoed through the air. Panic had taken hold of her heart, yet she battled the urge to embark on a search for her brother. He had provided her with precise instructions and deliberately refrained from seeking assistance. While acknowledging her limitations in terms of combat prowess stung her pride, she remained acutely aware of the worries that consumed her. Having contemplated the matter for a fleeting moment, she eventually redirected her gaze to the left and resumed her swift stride.
He instructed me to veer right upon reaching the clearing, but what lay beyond that point?
She pondered, deftly maneuvering between ancient trees and gracefully vaulting over concealed rocks amidst the dense undergrowth. No opportunity had arisen for him to elucidate the reasons behind his directive. Could this path lead her back to the high road? If so, there ought to be a distinctive landmark or familiar sound to guide her way. Arachel's eyes flitted restlessly, scouring her surroundings for any shred of guidance. She endeavored to sharpen her sense of hearing, yet the persistent thudding of her heart continued to intrude. Clammy droplets of cold sweat caressed her brow, heightening her apprehension as she grappled with the disquieting notion that her brother's expectations surpassed her actual readiness. The notion of failure incensed her, and she endeavored to steady her racing heart as before. However, in doing so, her running pace faltered. When she quickened her stride, her lungs clamored for breath, and as she gasped for air, her heart thundered all the more vehemently. It felt akin to attempting to dance and sing amidst a tumultuous storm, within the confines of an open-air amphitheater. A profound weariness enshrouded her mind, causing the elf-maid's vision to dim. Arachel then came to an abrupt halt as a faint sound reached her ears, a delicate tinkle. Her ears twitching with heightened sensitivity, she regulated her breathing to better discern the ethereal notes. The sound, though barely perceptible, evoked images of zephyr bells adorning a porch. Yet, the chimes produced by these bells seemed unnatural compared to the melodic tones carried by a gentle breeze. Regardless, it served as her sole clue, guiding her towards her brother's intended destination. Placing a hand upon the sheath of her dagger, she cautiously followed the enchanting sound, delving deeper into the heart of the woods. Nothing easily eludes an elf's vigilant perception owing to his acute senses. Nonetheless, such heightened awareness comes at unforeseen expenses. When one can hear nearly every sound, one must inevitably overlook that which is deemed superfluous in order to comprehend the entirety. Hence, it would be erroneous to claim that Aran'yon remained oblivious to the raven's hasty departure from its concealed perch once he had set forth from the vanquished Leshy. Yet, he had also perceived the flutter of other avian creatures taking flight, just as his senses had detected the myriad of beasts that slithered, skittered, prowled, galloped, and leaped through the verdant expanse of the forest. Elves, despite their wisdom surpassing that of many, are not bestowed with omniscience. Therefore, the elven lord had opted to overlook the raven's presence in that particular instance, for his thoughts were consumed by the paramount objective of reuniting with his sister. And so, the raven soared unhindered into the vast expanse of the skies above the verdant canopy. The actions of the elves had stirred a great commotion among the inhabitants of the forest. They held little regard for the elven hunters who stealthily ventured into the wood, seeking birds and beasts to be sacrificed for their festival feasts, whereas the Leshies, fierce and formidable, fearlessly defended their fellow creatures against any harm. Filled with fury over the murder of their guardian, the raven harbored no intention of letting such a heinous act go unpunished. As it ascended to the zenith of its flight, it unleashed a series of harsh, resounding croaks that pierced through the crisp air. The resonant sound caught the Night Lord's attention, causing him to come to a sudden halt and gaze upward, peering through the scarce openings in the canopy above. Aran'yon's eyes widened in astonishment as the piercing alarm call harmonized with the joining of a multitude of other ravens, creating a cacophony that reverberated through the entirety of the forest. Wasting no further precious moments, he swiftly recommenced his retreat, now with a renewed urgency. Opting to forsake the well-worn animal trail, he lunged through the lush foliage, his blade gracefully leading the way as he carved an unswerving path toward his destination. Arachel spun around, her senses ensnared by the cacophony that descended from the heavens, entwining the harmonious melody with piercing, malevolent screeches. A tremor coursed through her slender frame as she anxiously bit her lip, casting wary glances both ahead and behind her. She loosened the grip on her dagger's sheath and instinctively reached for her bow, its familiar weight comforting in her hands.
Something has gone amiss. I must hasten to his aid.
Her bosom swelled with an agitated rhythm as she turned, her gait gradually leading her back. Tremors quivered through her limbs, causing her slender legs to falter and her arms to quiver as she gingerly unfastened her bow from its resting place upon her back.
He entrusted me with specific instructions. I am certain he intended for me to heed the melody's call. Besides, what use could I be in any case? I would merely impede his efforts.
She ruminated silently. This reasoning held true. She was but a novice, bereft of battle-hardened experience. Her skill in striking motionless targets was of little consequence now. The quarry she had hunted previously paled in comparison to the present task. However, there was an even more disquieting matter that plagued her thoughts.
Why does this trepidation course through my veins?
The ground beneath her feet began to quake, eliciting a sharp gasp from her lips as the resounding echoes of deafening howls reverberated from afar. A profound recognition seized her heart. These were the hunting cries of the Leshy. Overwhelmed by a sudden surge of apprehension, her once steady grip faltered, causing her bow to slip from her grasp and tumble to the ground. She instinctively bent down to retrieve it, but her trembling fingers betrayed her, their quivers rendering them incapable of ensnaring the bow's limb.
Fear? No, that cannot be. Why should I yield to fear? I have already faced one and emerged unscathed.
The recollection flashed vividly within her thoughts, but a disconcerting alteration accompanied it. Not one but many spears now descended upon her at once. Arachel fell into an eerie silence as the malevolent sounds encroached upon her. Suddenly she turned once more and ran.